So yesterday we were discussing when the Yorshim pay a chaimish on behalf of their father and when not. Because we quoted a brisa that said they don't pay a chaimish al gesel aviv bisman shalonish b'loihu v'loyaviv. If neither of them swore, surely there's no chaimish. Hu v'loyaviv. If the Yorshim swore that they don't have anything of the nigzal, for instance, and the father didn't swear, or the other swore but the Yorshim didn't. All those cases, it's pashut that you don't pay chaimish. How do you know that say if the father swore and say if the Yorshim swore? How do you know that they don't either pay chaimish? The Yerush didn't steal, he didn't withhold schar, so he's not liable for the chaimish. So the Gemara at this point had a stira because we had an earlier assumption that the child does pay the chaimish, and the chaimish is moment. So Rab Nachman taught us that if the father swore falsely and was moida, and then his chiyuv to pay the chaimish was already triggered before he died, sure, the children have to pay that chaimish. But if the chiyuv for the chaimish was not triggered before the father died, then there will be no chiyuv chaimish triggered. Frek the Gemara, if the father was not moida, so then never mind that you don't pay a chaimish, you wouldn't pay the keren either, because we don't have any proof, in fact, that this keren belongs to anybody else. And the Gemara brought a brisa that shows, in fact, that they do pay the keren. But how do you know that sai lahu is for sai aviv? If no one ever swore about the keren, minayin, how do you know that the children still have to pay back the keren? Talmud Omer gzela the oishik aveda b'kadin and yesh Talmud. And Rav Huna said yesh Talmud means that we learn from the psukim. We learn from the psukim when we buried the kroy Amri. We learn from the psukim that in fact there's a chiyuv for the children to pay back the keren. So the Gemara is trying to understand what would be the case if the father was not moida, and that's what you have to say in order to find a case where chaimish is not paid. Then why would the children be paying the keren? There's no one being moida, and we don't pay it. So therefore, the Gemara needs to find one case where the children would not pay the chaimish, yet they would pay the keren. Dr. Gemara, Elamai loyhaida, maybe when it says loyhaida, it's loyhaida aviv v'haida b'nai. What happened is the father denied everything. I didn't steal any money from anybody. I don't have anybody's money in my possession. Then the father died, and then the son was moida, in fact, that he has nechasim of ploni. So there he's chayiv to pay the keren, but not the chaimish. Frek the Gemara, one of the cases where we said that the son does not pay a chaimish is even if he swore. If he swore, and we know it's a case where he was moida, and that's why he's paying the keren, well, why wouldn't he pay the chaimish as well? He swore that he doesn't have anything of the nigzal, and he was moida that it was a false shavua. So therefore, the chayiv b'noi chaimish ashvu today. And for the Gemara, Amri b'she'ein gezela kayemes. It's speaking where the gzela is not around, and as Rashi says, the lava lei rami l'shlume. He's not muchiv to pay. Frek the Gemara, ikishe'ein gzela kayemes, then I feel a keren nami loy mishal. If a child admits that his father stole something from a third party, and that object is no longer around, even though the child benefited from the value of whatever it was that was stolen because it's added to the estate, he does not have to pay. He does not have to pay the keren. So we're still stuck. Where do we find a case where there is a chiyuv for the child to pay the keren, yet no chiyuv for him to pay the chaimish? Zok the Gemara lo tricha de ikach rayis. You know what happened? The father left over properties, and properties are going to be meshubed to any bachoiv such as the victim of his theft. So therefore, since there's a shibud on the karka that's there will be a chiv to pay keren on the father's theft, but there's no chiv to pay the chaimish from the father's nechosim, from the father's karka. Rashi skips the rest of the Amid for this sugya, and Rashi goes straight to Zokta Gemara Bisha Amad Bidin. It's speaking Bisha Amad Bidin. And what does that mean? Rashi says right on the top. It's speaking where there was a Hamad Bidin before the Misa. So what happened over here? Oh, I'm sorry. Rashi skips even further. Rashi skips to the next case. If there's a shibud of nechasim and the son swore falsely that there was no gneva, and then the son was moida, and therefore he has to pay back the keren because there's a shibud on the nechasim of the father to pay back the gzela. So then why wouldn't he pay the chaimish as well? The father denied the chaimish as well, and the father swore about the chaimish as well in one case. Zok the Gemara, Amar Afun Ber Dabishua, Levishain Misham and Chaimish al Kafir Shibud Karkais. What happened over here? The father died, the object's not here anymore. So there's a chiyuv for the estate to pay back. Why? Because all of the karkais that are in the estate that the father had are meshubah to pay off the father's responsibilities, the father's obligations, such as the money that he stole. But that's not actual nechasim that belong to the nixel. That's just something that was owing. The halacha is you never pay a chaimish on kfir shibud karkais. If it's just something owing, you don't pay a chaimish when you deny that. Let's see Rashi. The chaimish, amai kaasi. Why are you paying the chaimish? Ashvuasa, on the shvua. But the problem is lab shvuahi. The shvua that the Yisraelim made to deny that they own anything of the nigzal, that's not a shvua that would qualify them for nasham gezeles. It's merely a lie, but it's not relevant to the parsha of nasham gezeles. Why? The kaimelom shvuas ein nishboin ala karkais. You never swear when there's a question of shibud karkais. So there would have been no chiyuv midaraisa for this child to swear anything. There's no chiyuv. He on his own decided that he wanted to swear to deny it. The high ben ki yishtaba, when he swore falsely that his father doesn't owe anything, kafir lo shibud karkais. All he's denying really is that the shibud karkais that my father has is non-existent. In other words, yes, my father is karka, but he doesn't owe you any money. That's what he swore about. That's not a shavua that would trigger the Nesham Gzelos. It might be a false shavua, but it doesn't trigger the Nesham Gzelos. The ilav mishum achrayis nechasim lav ram. If it wasn't for the fact that there's a achrayis on the field over here, he would never have had to pay anything at all. And therefore, the shavua is not a shavua that will trigger a Nesham Gzelos. And therefore, it won't trigger a chaimish either. So that is the case where you could pay a keren, but not a chaimish. It's when the father died, the father and the father died, and there was a chiyuv on his, and the gzela is no longer be'en, and there's a chiyuv on his estate to pay it back from the karka. Then the son swore to deny everything. That shvur to deny everything won't trigger a chiyuv chaimish later on, because that shvur is not considered a shvur related to Hasham Gzelos. That shvur is considered like a regular shavuos bita. Okay, so that was one case that we found where, although the children have to pay back the keren, they don't have to pay back the chaimish. Good morning, Victor. Zok to Gemara, Rava has another suggestion. Rava Amar, 4 lines from the top on Kuf Heil and Aleph. You know what the case over here is, where the child pays the keren but not the chaimish? The The father had a suitcase, had a receptacle, had a safety deposit box that was not there in the rishus of the children, that they were unaware of. And what happened was the money or the object that the father had stolen was there, but the children were not aware of it. So when they swore falsely that their father doesn't have anything in his estate that belongs to this third party, they meant it honestly. They didn't know that they were lying because they didn't know about the safety deposit box that their father had. So therefore, Karen Mishalim, they still have to pay the Karen, the Ha'isei, because the Geneva is there. Once they discover it in the safety deposit box, they have to give it back its rightful owner. But Chaimish Lo Mishtalim, they don't pay the Chaimish. You know why? When they swore that my father doesn't have anything of anybody, they meant it truthfully because they didn't know, they were unaware of anything else. And therefore they don't pay a Chaimish. Let's see Rashi. Rav Amar, speaking where the Gzela is around, and the actual Gzela does need to be returned to the rightful owner. Let him swear, let him be mechuyev the chaimish because he swore falsely that he doesn't have the object of the ganav of the nixal, and he actually had it in his rishos, just didn't know about it. Kivin the sagt Rashi hacha kishahisha diskaya shemamin aviv nosen ba mufkedesh biyaracher. There was a suitcase, there was some type of container that the father kept his money in that was placed at a third party for shmira, such as a safety deposit box. And in that safety deposit box was this gzela that they were unaware of. When the child swore that we don't have anything of yours here, because he was swearing truthfully because he didn't know that it was there. But if you don't know at all about it and you're swearing, thinking you're swearing the truth, there is no chiyuv carbon. There's no chiyuv carbon shvua, and there's no chiyuv chaimish. The libe answer, that's called an einus. Gewaltig. Okay, so where are you chayiv? You're chayiv if you knew that you're not allowed to swear falsely, or even if you didn't know that you're not allowed to swear falsely, you're mechuyev regardless, as long as you knew that you're swearing falsely. But if you didn't know that you're swearing falsely, there is no chaimish triggered due to your shul. Beautiful. So now we have it all clear. We know that if a chiyuv chaimish was triggered by the father while he was alive, meaning he swore falsely and then he was moida, the chiyuv chaimish remains and the children have to pay back that chaimish. If the chiyuv chaimish was not triggered, no matter what happened with the child swearing and denying that there's anything here of the nigzal, the chaimish will not be paid, but the keren will be paid. And the Gemara struggled to find a case where that would make sense. So Rava had a case, is the reason why you don't pay a chaimish, even though you should pay a chaimish, you're swearing you're denying something that you really have, is because you didn't swear falsely, knowingly, you didn't realize that if your father had it in this possession, or it could be speaking with Ein Gzela Kayemis, and if the Ein Gzela Kayemis, the shibud would be mechayiv to pay back to Karen. The fact that the father has karkoyis, leftover karkoyis, is mechayiv the children to pay back to Karen. But when they swear, they're swearing on kfir shibud karkoyis. They're not swearing that they don't have an object of the nigzal here. They're swearing that I don't owe you anything from the shibud karkoyis, and that's not a shvua that will trigger the chiyuv chaimish. Beautiful. Chutz mipachas shava pruta b'keren. What happens if everything was paid off already, except for one shava pruta of the keren, or the nigzal was moichel everything, except for one shava pruta, less than a shava pruta b'keren? So there's not enough keren here to trigger a chiyuv to give it back, and therefore you don't have to give it back. You can keep it here, and you can wait till the nigzal comes here to get it. Amar Papa, Zokra Papa, Vik Chiddush, Lo Shanu El She'en Gzela Kayemis. That we say that if there's less than the Shavar Pruta to be paid off, you don't have to get it back to the original owner, is if the original object that was stolen is no longer around. Avol Gzela Kayemis, but if the owner's actual item is still there, no matter how little it's worth, it still belongs to the Nigzal, Tzarech Leilach Ach. You have to get it back. Not because there's a chiyuv to return something that's even less than the shavapruta, but rather chashinon shema tiyakir. We're afraid there'll be inflation, and the product that you have will go up in value, and then it'll become worth the shavapruta. So because of that, you always have to give back anything that you find. Let's see Rashi. Lo shanu el she'ein oisa chatzi pruta kayemes min hagzela atzma. The original stolen item is no longer in existence. He just has an account owing a half a pruta. V'lav mamana ika. That's not mamana, because less than the shav pruta is not mamana. Aval im kayemes he min hagzela atzma. But if the original gzela was still there in the possession of the gazlan, tzarech leilach, he would be mechuyev to take it to the four corners of the world to return it. Chashinan shema tiyakir v'samid ala pruta. If it will become worth a pruta sometime in the future, it will trigger a chiyuv to give back. Give it back now. Ikadamri, there was another opinion. Amar Papa, loishna gzela kayemes. You don't have to run back after the nigzal to get him the money, even though this is his original cash that you stole, because we're not concerned that things will go up in value. If they go up, you'll worry about it later. Right now, you don't have to get it back. Okay, development. Amarava. So what we've just learned from this psak is that if the original gzela is there, then you give it back because it belongs to him. But even though it's not worth anything, so sometimes you have a chiyuv shava on something that's not even worth money. It's less than the shava pruta, and there could still be a chiyuv shava on it if it is part of the original gneva. So now we're going to discuss the halachas of returning something that's worth less than the shava pruta. And we're going to have some very interesting combinations and variations of scenarios. Amarava, Gazal shalosh agudos b'shalosh prutais. You stole three bundles, and each of these bundles were worth one pruta. So when you stole them, they were definitely items that you have to give back because they're worth a shava pruta. V'hozlu, and now after you stole them, they dropped in value. V'amdu ala shtayim. V'amdu ala shtayim. Now all three are only worth 2 prutas, which means that any two together, any 2 out of 3, will be worth at least 1 pruta. 1 aguda on its own is worth less than a pruta now, but 2 together will be worth a pruta. So the halach is shtayim. What if you already gave back 2? So you made a hashava because you gave back an item that's worth a shava pruta, but you still didn't give back the third one. Now the third one's not even worth a shava pruta. So would there be a chiyuv still to return that third one? You would have to return that as well. You would be mechuyev to return that as well. And we have a brisa that supports this psak. What if someone steals chametz and now Pesach has passed? So this chametz that you have is worthless. It's also bana. If the original chametz is still there, the gazlan can take it as is, give it back to the nigzal, and he can say, "Areish al chalafanach." Zog to Gemara, time it isa beinei. If the actual chametz is there, he can pater himself by giving it back, the worthless chametz, to the original owner. But halesa beinei, what if you don't have it? Then he has to pay cash the value of the chametz that it was worth when he stole it, which could be a lot of money. So halasa beinei, avagav dahashanami lav mamna. Lamaisa, this item here is worth less than a shava pruta, so he's not really dealing with a shava pruta. But if you can't give it back because it's not here, then kivan. Let's look at the aleph over here. Avagav dahashalav mamna, who right now it's not mamna because it's chametz shavel of Pesach, but kivan de meikar mamna, who since when you stole it, it had a cash value. It did have value, therefore, boy shlume, you would have to pay back. So that's not much different than our case of the agudos. Hachanami, avagav dehach shalosh shava pruta. Right now, this third aguda is not worth a pruta. No different than the chametz shavel of a Pesach. It's not worth anything. But given the mikar of a shavel pruta, since when you stole it, it was worth a pruta, therefore a boy shlume. So that's an interesting comparison. We're saying just like by the chametz, it was worth a pruta when you stole it. Now it's worthless. There's still a chiyuv to give it back. So to the aguda, there's still a chiyuv to give it back, even though now it's worthless because when you stole it, it was worth more. Gewaltig. Gewaltig. Let's see Tosfos because he gives us a little bit of clarity on what's going on. Amar Rav Gazal Sholosh Agudos Begimel Prutos V'Huz Levomer Al Shtaim Chayv Lachsloy Acheres Zok Tosfos important. Pirish Im Yeshna Be'en. If the aguda is still there, Machzer Oisa, he has to give it back as is, even though it's worth less than a pruta. V'Im Lav, and if it's not Be'en, Mishalem Lei Shava Pruta Kamosh Hoises Shava B'Shas Hagzela. Then he would have to pay its value, not now, but its value when it was stolen, which would be a pruta. The case that Rava discussed was 3 scrolls, but really he could have discussed a simpler case. If he merely stole 1 scroll, and it went down in value, it would be the same thing. He either has to pay the actual aguda, which now is worth less than a pruta, or if he doesn't have the good, he has to pay back the value that it had when he stole it. So why did Rava pick a complicated case of 3? Why didn't he pick a case of 1, which would be directly parallel to the raya that we brought from Chametz over Lava Pesach? El Rabusa Naka. Rava is trying to tell us a chiddush. That filu b'shloisha, even when there were 3 originally, the kai mitzvah hashava b'tarti, he was already somewhat mekayim the mitzvah hashava. It's better than Chametz Pesach. Chametz Pesach, you're in a matzav where you weren't mekayim any type of hashava. The question is, what would be the rules of the hashava? But here you already were mekayim somewhat hashava. You gave back 2 out of the 3. Nevertheless, you'll still have to give him back the 3rd. Avagav to frek Tosfos, but you don't see that from the raya from Chametz, because by the raya of Chametz there was no hashava other than giving back the Chametz itself. So Zok Tosfos avagav de mehai b'tanatuna de maisi loy mashma mina elahecha de gazal achas for huzla tahi domya le gazal Chametz over Pesach. Even though the raya from Chametz over Pesach doesn't fully support the chiddush that Rav is saying, Hahi Rabusa the Gimel Ka'amar Rava Misvara. That Rav is adding on his own. He's adding Misvara, this extra chiddush. Umidinakat v'huzlu, since Rava's cases where they dropped in value, mashma the pshitale, it's a mashma that it's partial to him. Im gazal gimel agudai shava shtei prutais. If we originally stole them, each one was worth less than a shava pruta, but all 3 together are worth 2 prutais. The hechzer lebeis my hand, and he only returned 2 out of the 3. The loy mechayev la'achsel shlishis. Therefore, sure you wouldn't be mechayev to give back the 3rd, because when you stole it already, it was worth less than a shava pruta. Given the mikar b'shas gzela loy have a mamana. That aguda by itself was not worth a pruta. U'l'shemer tiyaker loy cheshinam, and he's not choshes u'l'shemer tiyaker. Beautiful. Now we're going to learn even a bigger chiddush. Rav has the following shot. Gazal shtei agudos b'pruta. You stole 2 agudos, and they were worth together a pruta. And what happened? V'hirsaloi achas man, and you gave back 1 of the 2 agudas. Ma what we alot? Miarminon hashal lekik zela. Do you say right now there is not a shava pruta of gzela remaining, so there's nothing more for him to do? And let's look at the bays. Gabe, there's no gzela by him. There's less than a shava pruta remaining by him. Oidilma halei hader gzela davagabe. Or do you say he's still holding on to something that doesn't belong to him? Do you say that what's remaining by him is less than a shava pruta, and therefore he doesn't have to give it back? Or do you say there is something that's not his, that's in his rishos, he's got to give it back? Hader Pashta. And then Rabbi was Pashta the Shaila, and he said, Gzela Inkan, Hashava Inkan. He doesn't have any Gzela left, so there's no Hashava to be done. Break the more, those two comments are actually contradictory. Gzela Inkan, if you're going to say that there's no Gzela remaining by him, well then Hashava Yeshka. That means he obviously did whatever he needed to do to fulfill his obligation of Hashava. Zok to Gemara, this is what Rava meant. Hachi Kamar, Afal Pisha Gzela Inkan, even though there's no Gzela left by him, nevertheless, mitzvahs Hashava Inkan. He still wasn't Yoy to the mitzvah of Hashava, because there's still stuff by him that he needs to return. So Rashi, mitzvahs Hashava Inkan, near the Lebayla Mivshat, all Rava is trying to clarify is El Tloi Ma'akev mitzvahs Hashava. It's not Ma'akev mitzvahs Hashava. What he gave back was a good Hashava, but still mitzvahs Hashava mi'lokai. But he still doesn't get schar for doing Veheshiv because he has not completed the Veheshiv until everything goes back. So even though technically they can't force him to give anything more, he was not yoy to the mitzvah of Hashava fully because there's still some property that belongs to the Nigzal in his rishus. And now we're branching out using the same concept to other things. The halacha is when a Nazir is matahir himself, when he finishes, he discharges the Nazirus, he has to shave his head, he has to have the whole body. There cannot be 2 hairs left on his body. If 1 hair is left on his body, that's considered a proper giluach. But if there's 2 hairs left on his entire body, that's not called a proper giluach. V'yomar Rava said, Hayarma we said, Nazir shegilach b'shar shtei cyrus. What if a Nazir shaved off his whole body, but he missed 2 cyrus? So he was not mekayim the chiyuv of v'gilach. So therefore, he's not discharging his Nazirus. So lo yasav alei. It's as if he didn't even cut anything at all. Boy Rava. So Rava wanted to know what would be his of gilach achas v'nishra achas. There were 2 remaining, and he cut off the second to the last hair, and the last one fell out, so he was no longer able to cut it. So the question here is, when he left over those 2, he didn't do a giluach. Now he only cut 1 hair. Maybe that's not a giluach at all. So the question is, maybe he's in limbo because he didn't do a giluach and now he can't do it. Mao, I don't understand what your question is. Who said the Nazir has to cut all his hair at the same time? What if the Nazir sequentially goes through every hair and he cuts them off 1 at a time? And at the end, there's 1 left and it falls out. Avadi, that's considered a good giluach. So, is that the question? And of course, that's a good giluach. As Rashi says, that's your giluach. Kivan shebishah shabalag aleach high shear have a sheer giluach. When he started, just like with the whole body, when he started the whole body, it was full of air. He was going 1 at a time. Sure, eventually he's going to get to the end. There'll only be 1 left. Well, here too, when there were 2 cyrus remaining, he wanted to do a giluach. So he started by cutting the first hair, because he started when there were 2 remaining, and that would be considered a good giluach. So therefore, Amar Lei, so where Rava said, no, you're not understanding my shayla. He left 2 over. So the original giluach was not a good giluach. And now there's 2 remaining, but 1 fell out. So now when you're cutting the last one, it's taka not a giluach. V'gilach achas after 1 fell out. So now, Zukrashi shekeshabalag aleach, when you're now coming to do the giluach, ain't kan shir giluach, there's only 1 hair left. Miyar, when you say, hashta miyah, haleka shir, right now, there is no shir giluach. And therefore, he accomplished what he had to do. There's no hair. So therefore, maybe it's considered a good giluach. And he could continue on with the Nazirus discharge process. Idilma halav giluach. This is not considered the proper giluach. The mikara hashayir shtei cyrus. The original cutting left over 2 cyrus, that was not a good giluach. And now when he wanted to do a new giluach, he couldn't. There were no 2 cyrus to cut. So therefore he's in limbo and he doesn't have his giluach. Hader pashta. and he was posted the shaila in a similar fashion to what we said with the hashava. Sar inkan, there's taka no hair left, but giluach inkan. But there's no giluach here. So we ask the same question. Isar inkan giluach yeshkan. By definition, if there's no hair, obviously there was a giluach. So tomorrow hachigamar afapisha sar inkan, even though there's no hair, inkan mitzvah giluach inkan. There wasn't a mitzvah giluach. He never was mekayim the mitzvah properly. So what does he do? Is he in limbo? He can never become tar. So Tosfos tells us what the ramifications are. Zok Tosfos uma'akev melishas yain. Will tavel meisim. He will never be able to discharge his naziris. I guess he has to wait till everything goes back and cut it again. But for now, he's in limbo. Kilu lagilach. Kloimar kamanda amar giluach ma'akev. Because it says acher yishta nazir yain, acher kulam, after the whole process, including the giluach. And since he didn't do the giluach, he will not discharge his naziris. That's what I'm trying to do. Inami Zok Tosfos, no, avada you could discharge your naziris. Avada he can do the process and he'll be able to become tamei again and drink wine. All it means to say is in mitzvah ka'amar, like kayim mitzvah's galuach. He had a mitzvah and he did not fulfill that mitzvah. But and everybody holds this according to this shot that he would be able to discharge his nazir. Okay, Zok to Gemara. We're going to go on to these tangent shilas. Now we're going to get into Maseches Kelim. If you have, I'm going to learn it like Rashi. What happens if you have a 2-story house and there's a trapdoor, an opening in between the top floor and the second floor, and there's a mace on the main level? The tumah of the mace will get through that hole and will spread to the top floor of the house, and any kelim that are on the top floor of the house or people will become tamei from the oil of mace. Well, what if you put a klicheres and you plugged that hole? That klicheres will be matzil. It will not allow the tumah to penetrate, and anything upstairs will remain tar. But what if this barrel got a hole in it? Chavish and nikva. So now the tumah can get right through the hole of the barrel, through the bottom of the barrel. So smua shmorim. Shmorim form like a paste, and with the paste of the shmorim, you seal the barrel. Hitzilua, it protects it. Tosfos doesn't like this nusach of hitzilua, because what should say it should say chaytzetzes. It's chaytzetz between the main level and the second level. Therefore, Tosfos learns it's discussing there's taharis inside this barrel, and we know if something is in a tzamid pasul, if something is in a klicheres, in the oil of mace, that's covered over with a seal, tumah will not penetrate. And that's what we're discussing here. Will the tumah penetrate? So Rabbi wanted to know what would happen if Abba gets chachia. There was a big hole, a hole that would have been big enough to allow the tumah through, and you only plugged up half the hole. What would be the halacha? Right? So he didn't really plug it, but there's no tumah. That's why it's irrelevant over here. This would be our Mishnah. It's not we learned. Chavish and Nikva, this is a Mishnah in Kalim. Chavish and Nikva, a chavish that had a hole inside it. And you fill it with shemar, which acts as a good adhesive paste. Hitzilua, it saves the keli, and the keli will now stop tumah from passing through it. But what about if pakaga bismayra? You didn't use like a paste, you used a twig. You shoved the twig in. So now it might be stuck in that hole, but there's still air gaps around it. So achi marech, you have to smear around it to block all the air gaps. What if you didn't have one twig in there? You have to stuff 2 twigs in there to block the hole. So now, so you have to smear around the perimeter of the hole to seal it to the wood. You also have to smear in between these 2 twigs, because if we have 2 twigs there, there's going to be a lot of gaps of air that you got to seal up. The only reason why this is considered a seal is because you smeared it to close up all the hole. Had you not smeared it to clear up all the hole, we would have said that the tumah penetrates. You blocked up most of the hole with the 2 twigs, even though it's not airtight. So why wouldn't it be Torah? So you have a raya, in fact, that you can't plug up half the hole, you have to plug the whole hole. Zok to Gemara, no. Amri Hachiyasha, there's a very big difference. Hasam, if you have 2 twigs in there, Ilay Marach, if you didn't smear it, the problem is not that it didn't block the hole. The problem isn't that there's some air gaps. That's not a problem at all. Because loikay agav, eventually it's going to fall out. Eventually these blockages are going to loosen and fall out. So that's not called a good blockage at all. However, agav chacha, if you seal up half of the paste, that's going to be permanent. Whatever you plugged, whatever portion of the hole you plugged, will remain plugged. And therefore, that's where our shaila is. You can't bring me a raya from the Mishnah in Caleb. If you stole chametz and the chametz passed through Pesach, now the chametz is useless. Nevertheless, the gazlan can tell the nigzal, Rava had the following question. Now let's turn on to Amud Beis. Nishba alot. You have chametz that's technically worthless, and you swore that you didn't have the chametz. So is that a shvu that would be mechayiv you a keren v'chaimish? Because think about it. You're swearing on something that has no value. If you swear on something that has no value, you're not swearing on any money. So maybe then you shouldn't trigger a chiv keren v'chaimish. So in Nishbalov, you swore that you don't have this chametz that's even osher anyway. Now, what's halach? Miyamin and kivin the imignav boy shlumalei. Lemaisa, as long as he has that, it's worthless because he can give it back and he won't have to pay. But if this should go missing, if this chametz is his should go missing, Shonain will, it's going to cost him money. So Shonain will, his shvua, is saving him a lot of money. So now, if this should go missing, he's actually denying money with the shvua, maybe hundreds of dollars of what the chametz was worth. Right now it's here. Therefore, I'm not going to have to pay anything. And therefore, it's worthless. Therefore, and he's not been covered for any money. So if he's discovered to have lied, and they discover the chametz there, he should not have to pay keren v'chaimish vash. Zok to Gemara. Milsa di boile Rava. This same shaila that Rava was not sure about, pshitla the Rava. Rava knew the answer to the shaila. The Amar Rava said, "Shari ganafta." If Reuben goes to Shimon and tells Shimon, "You stole my ox," U'aymer like ganafti. Shimon said, "What are you talking about? I did not steal your ox." So Reuben says, "What do you didn't steal my ox? He's sitting there, right there in your pen. Ma'ativu etzlecha. If you didn't steal my ox, why is my ox right there?" So Shimon says, "Shari mechina money. I'm a shari mechina. I'm going to steal it. I'm going to give it right back to you. I'm watching it for you. Shari mechina money alot." The halacha is, and he swears that he's a shari mechina. Chayiv. The shomer, he's lying. He's really a ganav, but he'll be chayiv. Why? Because by saying that he was a shomer, chinam, sharipat atzmi g'neva aveda. The fact that he stole it would be mechayiv him even on Einstein. Now that he said he's a shomer and he swore, the shvu is going to say that you're potter on Einstein, you're potter on g'neva aveda, you're only chayiv in a pshia. So he actually saved himself a fair amount of potential money from his shvuah. And therefore, he has to pay a carbon shvuah because his shvuah saved him from a potential. What if he said Shem Yisachar and Yalav? Vayter he'd be chayiv. Sherei Potter atzim shvuah rumesa, because he potted himself from minus. And even if he says Shoyel on Yalav, he's chayiv. Sherei Potter atzmoi mimesa machmus malacha. If he stole it, he's betzim chayiv from mesa machmus malacha. By swearing falsely that he borrowed it, he won't be chayiv from mesa machmus malacha. Even though right now the animal's still alive. There's only a potential savings of money. Alma, you see, alpha gav da koyim, even though it's still here, even they mignav, since if it would get stolen, there's a potential that this could lead to his shavua saving him money. Mamanaka kafar, we consider it mamanaka kafar. Hashanami, when you're talking about how much aval of a Pesach, mamanaka kafar, even though right now it's worthless, but technically there's a potential that his shavua saved him a lot of money if the chametz would go missing. So Hakanami Alfagav the Avra Ba'almahu, Kivin the Imigna, if it would go missing, if it would get stolen, boy Shlum Alay, Mamoina Ma'alya, the Ganav would now have to pay the full cost of the chametz. Hashanami Mamana Kakafarle, we consider that a Shavua that's been kaifer Mammon, that's going to trigger a chiyuv of the Keren Chaimish Vasha. So Dr. Yosef Rabba, I believe, let's see what the Aleph says. Yosef Rabba. Rabbi was sitting v'ka'amar lahashmaitza, and he said over this halacha, his halacha, that swearing on a potential savings will also trigger a chiyuv carbon shvu. And the Esay Rab Amram l'Rab, and Rab Amram asked this akasha. It says the ki cheshba. The pasuk says when we're talking about the carbon shvu, It says, he denied that he had it for Nishbal Sheker. So what does this V'kichesh Ba teach you? V'kichesh Ba Prat L'moide V'ikr. He's moide in the Ikr. What does that mean? Ketzat Shari Ganafta. The plaintiff comes and says, "You stole my shar." Reuben told Shimon, "You stole my shar." But Shimon answers, "Loi Ganafti. I did not steal it." So Reuben says, "If you didn't steal, how come it's in your pen over there?" Mati ve'eklecha. So Shimon answers, "What do you mean? Ata machartali. You know why it's by me? I bought it for you. I bought it for you. It's fully paid for. It's mine." Or Ata nesateli b'matana. You gave it to me as a gift. Or avicha machruli. Your father sold it to me. Or avicha nasali b'matana. So yes, your ox is in my property because it's mine. Or, so these arguments are saying that they're mine. Now we have a new set of arguments. Achar parasi ratme elav. It's taka not mine. It's taka yours. You know why it's on my chutz? Not because I stole it, because it followed my chutz. It followed my animal into my chutzner, because you didn't have double locks on the entrance doors. Or ba'etzli toya b'derech. I'm sorry. Ratme elav ba'etzli. It came after my parin. I got it. Or toya b'derech mitzasiv. Or I found it. I found it was an Aveda. I had no intention of keeping it, but I found it. Or Me'ela Ba'etzli, or Toya B'derech. Okay, one of three things. In either case, I'm agreeing that it's not mine. So the first case is he seems to say it is mine, but it's justly mine. Other cases, it's not mine, it just showed up by me. Or Shari Mechinam on the Alav, or Shari Mesach on the Alav, or Shoil on the Alav, V'nishba V'haida, Yachal Yechayiv, you might think you're Chayiv, Tamadoy V'kichesh Ba, Prat L'moide B'ikr. So this is a Gavaldik Kash on Rabbi. Rabbi said a moment ago, you're Chayiv Carbon Shvua. The Brisa says you're Potter. Amar Le Tadura. What does Tadura mean? There's a shtickle sharper thing. Ain't lave, you're not thinking. That's not a good kasha. Why are you hacking me at China? Kitanya he. You know what the Brisa is referring to? When the Brisa says you're Potter from Carbon Shvua? It's the Amar Le Halach. The Shleimer, when he swore, whatever he swore for, he gave it back for us. He says, these are mine. It wandered into my chutzner. It followed my animal. I found it. I'm a Shem Mechina, but take it right back. When you take it right back and then you swear, there's no korban shavu at all. As Rashi says, the lekalamemer, you can't say ilu mignav kamei koi v'shakale. You can't say that if it was stolen, I'm saving money, because it won't be stolen. I'm giving it right back then. So I'm for sure not saving money with my shvu. Zok to Gemara. Kitanya he the kamal halach. Kikaminab, you know, and I said my halacha. Rabbi said that you have to make a carbon shvua. Is the kaim ba'aga? It's speaking where the animal's not there.
The first.
So Fred Chaim, the Gemara says that's very good at the end. That's yours. But at the machartali, my moida beikrika. If bottom means I am lying. Look, the Gemara, look at that. Look how the Gemara emphasis. Beautiful. Loy tricha. Yeah, you sold it to me. But not like I said before, rather, I never ever paid for it. And you know what? I'm not paying for it. Shkoil turach, take your ox, vizil, and go back. Or atanasatali, or you gave it to me. Or avicha nasnuli. What about those cases? Ma moide beikar ika. What's the moide beikar? You're saying it's yours. It was given to you by Matana. So tomorrow, the Amr lay, no such thing as a free lunch. Why was it given to me as a gift? Almanasta vidna lach nachadinavsha. Because you wanted some favor in return. But you know what? I didn't do anything for you. So you really never meant to give me the matana. So once again, lech shkil turach, vizil, take it and go. What about toya b'derech mitzasif? By toya b'derech mitzasif, there you're admitting that it belongs to him. But there should be a tain on him. Lema, he should tell him you did an avla. If you found it, why are you holding on to it? Why didn't you tell me you found it? So why are you holding on to it? You should give it back to me. So Rashi, as soon as you found it, you have no right to take it to your house. You knew it was my ox. You're a big ganim. He made a shvua. I found this animal wandering. But I didn't know it was yours. So that's why I didn't give it back. So I didn't do a novel yet. Tanya, Amr ben Nazai, Gimel Shavuos Hain. You know, at 6:50, this is a little bit of a newish sugya let's stop here and we will continue tomorrow. Because Hashem, here I can't use the excuse that I used yesterday that Rashi's not Gurish the rest of the daf. Rashi is very much Gurish the rest of the daf, but I don't want to rush. We started a little bit late today because I was waiting for Olam to come. So I lost 5 minutes. But Bez Hashem, tomorrow will be Mizaris, we'll be on time. And we have a big blot tomorrow, so we have to be on time. Although Shabbos, it looks like it's going to be a little bit smaller. Okay, Gavaltik, everybody should have a wonderfully awesome day.